Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is leveraging wholesalers. Wholesalers can be invaluable partners in your real estate investment journey. They specialize in finding deeply discounted properties and can save you time, effort, and money. Here are 4 ways leveraging wholesalers can benefit your badass business. Number 1, access to off-market deals. Wholesalers often have access to properties not listed on the market. For example, you might find a single-family home in a desirable neighborhood for 30% below market value, giving you an edge over other investors. Number 2, time savings. Wholesalers do the legwork of finding and negotiating deals. Imagine receiving a vetted list of potential investment properties each month without spending hours searching and vetting them yourself. Number 3, reduced effort. By working with wholesalers, you avoid the hassle of direct marketing to homeowners. For instance, a wholesaler might bring you a pre-vetted property with clear investment potential, allowing you to focus on closing the deal. Number 4, increased profitability. Leveraging wholesalers can lead to quicker turnaround times on property flips. For example, if you acquire a property at a substantial discount, you can renovate and sell it faster, maximizing your return on investment. So, by leveraging wholesalers, you gain access to exclusive off-market deals, save valuable time and effort, and can increase your profitability. Establish strong relationships with reputable wholesalers to consistently tap into these opportunities and stay ahead of the competitive real estate market. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Carly Mannino. Carly is a seasoned real estate investor with a passion for helping others achieve financial independence through smart and innovative investing strategies. With years of experience in the industry, Carly specializes in creative financing techniques that empower both new and experienced investors to maximize their opportunities and grow their portfolios. It's my pleasure to have her on the show, so welcome, Carly Mannino.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. And I gotta announce, we started this, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and my power went out right in the middle of the recording, and it was awful. We were rocking this podcast. And anyway, I do appreciate your flexibility, and Mother Nature was just was not having it that day. So we have power. We are good. Actually, the sun came out. It started pouring earlier today. I was like, no. But anyway, Carly, yes, thank you so much for being here. So give us a little background on how you got started in real estate.
I can start with real estate. My family owned real estate when I was younger. My grandfather owned many properties. But we're Italian, so there's a lot of us. So he didn't rent those out. We just had aunts and uncles and cousins that just lived in them. No money to be made there, but he also owned gas stations. So that's kind of where the financing came in for those properties. Of course, you could buy them a lot cheaper back then. So that was good. But more recently, I've always had the interest in the properties, obviously from that time. But I had someone reach out to me once, and he wanted to I had a Christmas light installation company, and he had asked me if he could work for me. And I was like, he was an older gentleman. I was like, we're going 40-foot ladders. Are you sure? You sure you want to do that? And he's like, yeah, and he did. And he was up and down the ladder. I was like, okay, go. Good for you. And then the next day he called me and he's like, hey, would you want to work for me? And I'm like, wait a minute, because you just asked me to work for me, for you. So like, wait a minute. And I'm like, what do you do? Like, I thought you needed a job. And here he had been doing rehabs here in Raleigh since the early 80s. He didn't like the term fix and flip. He liked rehabs. And so I was like, well, I don't know anything about that. Never done it. And he's like, yeah, I'll teach you. I'll show you. And so I started learning, and that was really cool. And I really enjoyed it. And, learning how to see how to do the rehabs and how to judge them and see them, visualize what needs work. And he had gotten a plot of land in Belize. He went down there and did a new build, loved it, made a bunch of money on it, was really happy. So he went and bought like 20 more plots of land.
Wow.
In Belize. And I was like, well, I'm not moving to Belize because I'm in North Carolina. So good for you. So I was just on the, I knew enough to be dangerous at that point. Like I knew I liked it. I knew I was interested in it. I knew I could do it. The question then was how, what do I need to learn? What do I need to know to do everything, like I would say, legally, morally, and ethically correct. And since I didn't know what I didn't know, I went to the local Real Estate Investors Association, the RIA, or at that time it was the TRIA. And each one of those has a great group of investors to network. They bring guest speakers in that have a lot of knowledge and programs and to teach you. And it just lined up perfectly that the way I did it. I learned everything in perfect order. I think God was looking over me and saying, do this first, and do this. Yeah, so I learned, and just going to constantly being out there in the networking and constantly getting new education, because I tell everybody I already have a computer and a business degree. I feel like I got another degree in real estate investing. So, because there's a lot to know. And when you think there's more.
Exactly.
So,
well,
I'm always learning.
I love that you brought up the whole networking aspect, because I coach students, and I feel like some of them are afraid to actually attend meetups, and I don't get it. I am just like you, Carly, in that my network of people locally is what propelled my business to grow even quicker.
Yes.
And I'm truly, truly thankful. And it's one of those things to tap into. And Carly mentioned RIA, which is Real Estate Investor Association, and they have them across the country. It's typically $300 to $350 to join for the year. And they have events throughout the month. And to use those letters, REIA, you have to follow certain stipulations throughout the country. And anyways, it's a great organization. So make sure you go out and find your local RIA. So I want to tap into your involvement with creative financing, because this is such a hot topic right now, and the sky is the limit for all the different options you can do with creative financing. And in a world where we are right now, where interest rates are so high and people are afraid to buy things, people can't afford to buy certain things, many people are not getting approved for loans, etc. So I think this is such a great topic to talk about. So can you dumb it down a little bit and tell us what are some forms of creative financing?
Sure, absolutely. I agree with you with like the interest rates going up. This was very popular in the early 80s because when the interest rates were really high in the teens. Thankfully, we're not there. But it kind of fell by the wayside as we got the interest rates went down and things got more affordable and people were able to get loans through the bank. I personally had never in my life got a mortgage in a bank, ever. So that's one of my things. I use my creative financing. And the good news about creative finance is once you do it, you can use it for anything. It doesn't have to be a house. It could be a car. It could be a business. It could be anything that you and the seller agree to. It could be a bicycle, whatever works.
It could be a glamping business. I just interviewed a gentleman who bought an entire glamping business, and through creative financing, he got all the materials with no money out of pocket. It was more of a profit share. So, I like this. So keep going. So what are some options for creative financing? Yes.
So the main things, the most basic things is seller financing, and subject to. So seller financing is pretty simple. That's when the owner owns it free and clear. There's no mortgage, there's no note, there's nothing there. He has zero balance. He just owns it outright, or he or she. And when you buy it from them, you're just making the payment directly to them, and they're now the bank. You get a note created, you make that payment every month, and you make it directly to the seller. With subject to, that is subject to the existing mortgage. So we do go through the whole closing process. We get the deed, but there is a mortgage in place with the seller. That mortgage stays in place. It stays in their name. And we continue to make that payment for them each month. And it is vital, if you do this, that you make their payment before you make your own. Like, you have their credit in your hands, their life in their hands. And if you make a commitment, you need to keep your word and make sure you make that payment every single month.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up because, well, Pace Morby he's fabulous, fabulous guy. And I think really kind of introduced so many newer investors in general, to the topic of subject to. And his organization has grown and grown and grown. And I feel like it's a lot more popular now because of him and his students and spreading all that. I'm starting to hear stories of loans getting called. I'm starting to hear like banks are catching on. How do you go about assuring that you are going to be making those payments?
I would start with working with somebody that has experience, someone that knows how to do this and has done deals and understands what they're doing, that they're going to do what they say. Most people have, websites and Facebook pages where there's testimonials and things where they can say, yes, this person did this, yes, this person did this, and it worked out great. Maybe if not, then you might want to question that. Every single thing, everything goes through an attorney. Every time, nothing gets done without an attorney. So all documents are gone through there. We have two documents, particularly for the seller, and that is a promissory note, and depending on your state, it could be a deed of trust or a mortgage. North Carolina is a deed of trust state, so we use a deed of trust. Those documents are drawn up by the attorney and sent to the seller so that they have those information. There's a lien put on the property so that if anything were to happen with those documents, we also use a wrap mortgage, which I believe we talked about. A wrap mortgage is simply their mortgage is there. We're buying the home for a higher price than that they owe on their mortgage, right? Because they didn't buy the house yesterday. They've been paying it down. So as they pay it down, they owe less than what they're asking for. So we take the higher mortgage and wrap it around the existing mortgage. That's a document that the attorney draws up. And that way, if God forbid, for some reason, you were unable or just simply do not perform in the way you said you would, that they can take they have an instrument to take the property back.
So
they might not want the property back, but at least in this case, it's probably fixed up.
Right.
It's been paid down a little bit and appreciation's gone up. So they're still in a better situation,
right?
Even if that's worst case scenario.
Exactly. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, you just put it in a land trust and that will, secure it better. So you don't agree with that?
Yes, put it in a land trust, always, 100%. But that doesn't that's one piece of the puzzle. There's more. You have to do more than that to protect them, right? Because it doesn't automatically revert to the seller just because there's a land trust there. You put the land trust for the due on sale clause that hopefully, if the bank is to call it, anybody in America is allowed to put their home in a trust for retirement benefits and things like that. So we fill out the documents, with their information, showing them as the beneficiary. And so if the bank does ask, they have that trust document and they can show it to the bank.
Now, after they say you are purchasing a property subject to, it's renovated and now you are getting ready to list it, does that land trust just go away? How do you get rid of, I don't want them coming after the next owners of the property, et cetera. So how is that all handled?
The land trust is not recorded anywhere. So that's one part. The attorney will draw it up, but it's not recorded. The seller gets a copy. The seller gets the original and you get a copy. With us, we don't sell these houses on the MLS. we stay involved. We do lease options, which is we take the property, we lease it to the new tenant buyer, because they're not just tenants, they're not just buyers, they're a tenant buyer. Oftentimes they're either a business owner that maybe has been writing off some things and needs to get qualified with the bank. We need to get them to pay some taxes so that they get up there a little bit better. Or maybe they just need some time. They could be new to the area. There's multiple reasons that people would do this. And so we put them in a 24-month lease. You can do different amounts, but we do 24 months. That's just my personal preference, because banks often need 24 months of documents. So I figure if we set them up for success, they have better odds of being successful. We have a credit repair / building / just getting them ready, whatever they need to get credit going for themselves if they need it. We have 2 services. One's free. One has a cost to it. So it's their choice. They're not required to, but we do recommend it, and we give them options to use those services. And so once we do that, those documents kind of help them set up for success.
So let's just back up to the land trust thing, because that was a little confusing to me. So it's just like a shell of a document and it's just not recorded. You kind of confused me on that.
It's drawn up by the attorney, but the whole point of trusts is that they are not public information. And so it's not recorded on public record.
Okay, but it is an actual trust. I thought you were just having like a fake trust meeting.
No.
Not recorded for the I
real
get what
trust.
you're saying. Okay.
It's just nobody's business. That's the point of a trust, is that whoever the beneficiary is not on a public record.
Okay, so let me back this up. You are buying properties subject to perfect storm. Is there someone who owes some more on their property? They're falling behind on payments and they're down and out. So you find this person, and it could be, from my badassery bestowment, it could be from a wholesaler. You get the property and you get it for pennies down. Where does the seller go at this point?
So when we look for properties, people ask me all the time, how do you get these houses? Well, we don't look for houses. I'm not like buying a list and looking for houses. We look for people that happen to have a problem, that happen to have a house attached to it. So there is a pain point, and either they have, could have been divorced, could have been a job transfer. Maybe they just bought the house, now it's a job transfer. It could have been left in a will and they live in Washington and don't need a house in North Carolina because it's a million miles away and they've never seen it. It could be hoarding, could be mental health, could be any number of things. It could be taxes they can no longer afford since taxes went up and that price of their house went up. So now their taxes went way up. Repairs that they can't afford or just don't want to do. We come in and we work on solving that problem. And then once we solve the problem, we will work with them. If we can get them to save their house and stay in their house, that's ideally. We want people to keep their homes above all things. And if we help them do that and then they succeed and stay in the home, that's a blessing. And we're happy for that, even if we don't make a penny. But for the people that otherwise would be out and have no place to go, at least in this case, they don't have a foreclosure on their record. They don't have to deal with the house any longer. They probably have some money in their pocket, which they would have had zero before. And usually these people do a number of different things. They're either going to go rent, is the most common thing, is, owning a home was too much. They just want to rent for a while. That's most common. Sometimes they'll go live with family. They have a plan. They're going to go live with family and get on their feet and do whatever. Because you got to remember, it's not like they're just like, here's my house. It's like there's a problem. They are struggling in some manner. We've had people that they just were like, we bought an RV and we're just going to live in an RV until
I want to live in an RV.
Yes, exactly. So I was like, well, good for you. That's great. You have a plan and you're going to save yourself lots of money. And then we do have people that do buy a house directly after. And we have found some lenders that will work with them when we show them that we're making these payments for them. So they're not going to be responsible for 2 mortgages and go from there. But that's pretty rare, but it does happen.
Thank you for explaining all that. That's fabulous. And because as real estate investors, there are so many times where we come across situations where you're right. It's the people that we want to take care of. And then they just happen to be attached to a property. So Very, very well said. What are some pretty typical, and this is a loaded question because there's nothing typical, but what are some typical terms that you use with your subject to deals?
On which side, like with the buying or with the
As you're
selling?
buying.
So with subject to, it's pretty cut and dry because there's already a mortgage in place. Um, so we just talk to them and see, are they behind? Do they have arrears? Do they owe mortgage? Do they owe taxes? If that's the case, obviously we're going to pay those, whatever that amount is. Is there a wholesaler involved? Then we need to pay the wholesaler's fee. Um, Generally, if we're doing that, we're not giving the seller actual cash or very little actual cash at the purchase because we're catching them up and everything. We're already putting money into it. If there's rehab that needs to be done, we're obviously going to take that into consideration as well. Normally, we don't really negotiate the price of their home much because we tell them if you give us time, you're going to make more money overall. They're not paying commissions, they're not paying repairs, they're not paying taxes. So they're saving tens of thousands of dollars on that side of it that they're able to make over time. And then with the payment and the term, it's basically whatever your payment is. We will just continue to pay that until it's paid in full. So they might have 10 years, 30 years. We don't know what they have. So whatever the mortgage is, we try to stay in line with that.
Okay, so if they're in the rears, you are getting them current. Do you give money to them to help them for down payment on an apartment if they're going to move to, say, a rental? Or, I mean, it just varies from deal to deal, though, correct? Yeah.
It really depends.
And then
So sometimes yes, sometimes no. It just depends on the situation in the house and everything.
And how do you finance getting their loan current and then paying for the repairs? How do you finance that?
There are these wonderful people in the world called private money lenders, and they're amazing. And you get those through networking. You can meet them at RIA. The amazing thing, nobody believes it until they start doing it, is they're literally all around you. All you have to do is open your mouth and ask. If you tell somebody, hey, would you like to give me some money for a short period of time? It's secured by this house. You're going to get a legal document from an attorney. In worst case scenario, you get a house for this small amount of money that you're going to give me. And so most people are like, yes, sign me up for that. I will take that all day. And so with them, we'll come up to them and we'll say, this is the property we have. We're looking for X amount for X amount of time. Every deal is different. It could be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, depends on what the property is, how much work. Obviously, the less work, the quicker we anticipate on getting the money back to them. And so that varies, but it's wonderful to have those people because you can just pick up the phone and say, hey, here's the attorney's information, wire it over there. They get a promissory note as well. And so they know what to expect. It's all written out in the promissory note. And there's a multitude of ways to do that as well, whether you just make monthly payments or a balloon payment or, or just wait till it sells. So there's a few different ways you can do it.
Okay, so before we get into seller financing, have you ever had a subject to deal like go south that you're really trying to work hard to structure it and everything and something, either the bank called the loan or the seller freaked out about something, anything like major or that you know of something as an example to share?
We have been blessed. We don't do them too quickly. We make sure we go over everything. We're super thorough with the sellers to make sure that they are clearly understanding what is going on and what's happening. And so, we make sure all the documents are very clear, that they sit with the attorney and go through everything. So once we actually get to the point where they sign the contract, we've been very blessed at that point.
Wonderful.
You get people that you start it and then they just don't sign the contract. And then you're like, well, it wasn't okay, thank you.
Next. So
keep on moving.
Exactly. So I want to get into seller financing. And as we transition talking about seller financing, I'm assuming attorneys need to be your best friend in a situation like this. When I started back in 2017, there was literally one attorney that was recommended by most of the people. And creative financing deals, and she's located just outside of Charlotte. So I'm assuming with the whole expansion of subject to deals and creative financing that there's a lot more attorneys. But can you just touch on that for the listeners on how important it is to find an attorney that understands these type of transactions?
Yeah, 100%. Like if you call them and you tell them you're doing a creative deal and it could be seller finance or subject to, and they're like, let me check, or they hesitate in any way, shape, or form, do not use that attorney. You don't have time to be teaching and training, and there are other attorneys that are doing this and regularly doing it. So network, go to your RIA, go ask around who's using what, who's using who do they recommend. And that kind of ebbs and flows too. Like some people are like, oh yeah, I was doing it. Now I'm not doing it. Now this guy's doing it. This person's doing it. So it changes, and you want to have more than one anyway, yes, because people get busy. And if he's a month out and you could close next week, well, I want to go with the guy that can close next week. So you should have 4 or 5 of them that do it. But again, they need to be doing several of these a month. You want somebody that has the experience that when you call, the paralegal knows what it is, the attorney knows what it is, and it's very crystal clear, and they know how to drop it very quickly.
So important, listeners, make sure you are using vetted attorneys to draw up these documents, and it's just to protect your assets, right?
And they should be real estate attorneys, not, I do this, and this. No. It needs to be their primary focus. The only exception to that is if they're big enough that they have one person dedicated to it in their office, that's all that one person does, then that's fine. But otherwise, if they do 10 other things and real estate just happens to be one of their things, that's a no.
So let's get into seller financing. And what is the perfect storm for a seller financing deal?
I might have gotten the perfect storm for a seller financing deal. I had a friend that I've known for over 20 years, came to town. He was in South Carolina driving up to Ohio. And he's like, hey, let's have lunch. And so he's like, I don't really know what you do. And so I described my first deal to him. And he was like, oh, that's very cool. Great, whatever. And so he goes off to Ohio. 2 days later, he calls me at 6:00. A guy had come to his door. He's renting an apartment in a triplex. And he said, he's like vividly upset, like very upset. He's like, my house is going to sheriff's sale tomorrow. The landlord didn't pay the taxes. I was like, oh, okay. The landlord had actually passed away and left it to his son. His son didn't really want to do real estate investing. And this was not the first house they'd lost to taxes. The big deal was they lost the house where all the taxes were going to. And so all of the mailings for the taxes were going to one house, and that was already lost. So obviously they were getting no mail on the taxes. So I worked with them. I tried to get them to save this house. The seller wasn't particularly interested in saving the house. And so we discussed it, and I ended up, I think they were about $7,000 behind on taxes. So I paid that. And then I figured out roughly just from the taxes, I knew that the house was 130 years old, I believe.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah. So I knew it was going to need work, and it did. But it was fully rented. And I went through and I was like, okay, it's worth like about $27,000. I'm paying $7,000.
A triplex?
So yeah.
Oh
well, I take that back. So on the tax records, it said it was about $27,000. So I paid the $7,000 in taxes, and I told him, look, I'm just going to pay you. I did the math. I was like $320 a month for 48 months. And that's it. So I got no down payment, no interest, $320 a month for a triplex. And it actually ended up being worth about $110,000. Once we went through some things, and I did get a private lender to come in so I could do some rehabs on it. But the people were paying between $400 and $450 a month, and I was still clearing $1,000 a month cash flow.
Oh my goodness. That, Carly, is a perfect storm. I love that. And it just was a passer through who said, let's go grab lunch. And this is why it's important to have those conversations, to do the networking, just to be talking to everyone. And quick story, my flooring guy, who I adore, Mickey with Carpets Plus, shout out to Mickey. Mickey randomly called me the other day and said, hey, this is my wife's parents' house and the nephew trashed it. And I probably shouldn't be saying this, but what can we do? So I was able to go over and evaluate the property, help him out with things. And so interesting. I may have to go throw some creative financing in though, as we're like digging through this. That might actually work for this property because it's on a well and septic, but there's no records of it. It's on a busy road. I mean, there's just so many issues. It's got a pool. So I actually think in North Carolina, that's a hindrance because that dwindles your pool of buyers, pun intended, because not many people actually want a pool in North Carolina. So anyway, I digress, but I'm just trying to have the listeners, I'm planting that seed that you don't have to find your next deal on the MLS. You can go out there and look for the person that has the problem, but is attached to a property, and for you to go and offer them a situation where it will help them out of that problem. So I love that. I want to wrap up this first part of the podcast here about you got to explain this to me. How do you get paid 3 times on every property? Talk to me, sister. What in the world is that all about?
It's very important to get paid a lot. We work hard and we should get paid for all we do. People are amazed when they find out the truth of it's not like you see on TV. There's actually a lot of physical hard work, stress, juggling, and trying to make things happen. So with 3 times, what we do is when we purchase it, we get with a private money lender. When we do that, we always borrow A, more than the house, B, more than the repairs, because we want to get a little bit extra. That gives you a little cash flow in your pocket right up front when you purchase the home. Secondly, we get the spread. And when I mean the spread is like if the mortgage is, in my case, $320, then the rent was about $1,200. So I was making $900 a month on the spread. So I was getting that as well. And then on the backside, when we're ready to sell it, then we get the difference between what we purchased it for and then the price that we're selling it for. So on every deal, you should get paid at least 3 times.
Okay, so let's go back to that first one. You use a private money lender, but you say you need $40,000 in repairs and $60,000 to purchase the property. So you need $100,000 total. You're going to borrow, say, $120,000. Now that $20,000, that's just going into your pocket?
Right.
Oh.
I wouldn't normally do that much, but I would say maybe like $110,000. And $10,000 goes in your pocket. You're not greedy. We never want to be greedy, but it's always good because you never know when something could happen. And so you always want to have that cushion.
So how does that lender feel about it?
They're fine because they understand that I'm never going over 65% of the value of the property. So if it's $100,000, I'm never borrowing more than $60,000.
Okay.
If the ARV is $100,000, we're never going over $60,000. We never over leverage. We never put them in a situation where it's close or over. We're always protecting the seller and the lender.
Well, I'm excited about that spread. Do you still own that triplex, by the way?
I do.
Oh my God. Is it paid off yet?
No, I've only had it for a little over a year, but we're doing a rehab on it starting here in like 2 weeks. And so one tenant moved out. It was, you always get one trouble tenant. And we were about to give her 30 days.
They're all perfect. What are you talking about?
We were about to give her 30-day non-renewal, and she called me and said that she was moving out. And so I called because my friend that lives there now is the property manager. And I was like, do not give her that letter. Like, don't, just let it happen naturally. It's happening. Let it go. Because I'd just given it to him that day. I was like, okay, I get that over to her. And I was like, never mind, don't do that. And so And then, so we're going to make that a midterm rental, and that's going to clear about 2,000 a month. And then upstairs, we're going to raise the rent to a more marketable rent, which is about just under 900.
Wow.
So my spread on that is about $3,000 a month.
Damn. Good for you, Carly. I love, love, love that. So before we go into the second part of the podcast here, how do people find you to learn more from you? Because this is awesome stuff here.
So you can email me at, my company's name is Diamond Capital Assets. You can email me at diamondcapitalassets@gmail.com, or you can call me at 919-964-0264.
But do you have like a website?
We have the Facebook website, has the Diamond Capital Assets on that. I have finally hired some people to work for me because I've been a one-woman show for a long time. And they're actually getting ready to have a website up here in just a couple of weeks, hopefully before my course. So, and that's just diamondcapitalasset.com, no plural.
And we got to get
But
you.
that won't be live for about 2 weeks.
Well, we got to get you away from using that Gmail address because that screams rookie, young lady. So we got to get you to get a website going here and get that on there. But and you are far from a rookie. I didn't mean that's what I'm like. What a Gmail? I'll tell you something else.
Yeah,
Tarek El Moussa.
so many mail.
Tarek El Moussa still has a Gmail account. Come on, Tarek. Anyway,
I have so many people have that email. I get hundreds of emails a day. I'm like, I don't know if I could ever get rid of it.
I hear you. I broke up with AOL just like maybe 5-6 years ago. I think I was the last remaining AOL account. But anyway, well,
I still see people with it. That and what was the other one?
Yahoo.
No.
Is it Yahoo?
Hotmail.
Hotmail. That's the other one. Well, I think everything that you said, I just want to open it up to the listeners because not everything's cut and dry. And so if somebody has questions about things, I'm glad that they can find you and research that and then also learn from your course that you're going to be starting. So the second part of the podcast is what makes Carly Mannino a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS. And the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I was reading so many books. I have a stack next to my bed about this big. I'm right now reading Who, Not How, which is a great book because I've been doing me, 16-hour days, no days off. And so I stopped asking how am I going to do it and who as I'm going to do it. And that's why I hired 4 people this week to start doing stuff that I don't have to do. And when they saw the sheer amount of work that I do, they didn't know how the 4 of them were going to do it.
I believe it.
Like, are you kidding? I'm still going to have this done on Monday with or without y'all, but let's go. This should be so much easier with all of you.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I want to hire an assistant. Like, just do this for me, and I need you to do blowouts too. I want someone physically. Can you imagine?
I need somebody to come do my hair.
I want you to make me breakfast and do blowouts, and then address some letters or something. I don't know. I just want an assistant so bad.
The state of North Carolina has a program for small business owners that for the first 90 days they will pay the new hire, and then for the next 90 days, depending on multiple factors that they factor in, they could pay 50 to 75% of their income, and then after that, of course, you're required to pay them.
Okay, it is very rare that I am silent, but my jaw just dropped on that. I need to research that. Carly, good info right there. I love it. All right, the first
I like
A.
to have information.
Exactly. The first A in badass is for advice. You gave us great advice, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh my goodness. So many different things. I guess getting paid 3 times was pretty good advice. Like once I learned that, I was like, wait, you do it? How do I do that? I can do that. Cool. Get paid 3 times on every single deal.
All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
You know, I am very driven and ambitious. I guess I just can't stop. And initially started, I was a single mom. So, if you didn't do it, they weren't getting fed, they weren't getting clean, they weren't getting taken care of. And that's just transitioned into everything I do. Like if I don't get it done, it doesn't get done. So let's go. So I have a lot of things I want to accomplish and plans that I have and things that I want to do. And I know I have to do them to get them done.
Amen. All right. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
I have many of those.
What is it?
I have many of those. One is getting as many people to do creative finance legally, morally, and ethically as possible because I see people out there doing it crazy. And that's why I started the course because I wanted people to do it for the right reasons, which was help sellers. And FYI, if you do that, you'll make money. You don't need to chase money and be greedy. There's so much money. That's why I didn't even raise the rents on people paying $400 a month because it's like there's plenty. You can make $1,000 a month on a house and be fine. Um, so that's my first thing is just making sure people are doing this correctly because I do see people out there doing it wrong. Um, the other thing is some charities that I'm working on building up, and it's a friend of mine. She has a charity called CDH. They call it for charities when newborns are born, their diaphragm doesn't close all the way and the organs start to go up so their lungs don't develop.
Oof.
And 50% of these babies die within the first 72 hours. And she started the charity because her son had it and he lived to be 6. But even if the 50% that don't pass away, they rarely live into their 20s. And so because it's such a common place for newborns to pass away, it's not very well known. And so she's always struggling to get financing. And she's been a one-woman show. She goes all over the world and she talks at all these conventions with surgeons and medical doctors and all these high PhDs. And she's like, I was just a mom trying to raise awareness for my son and get research. And so she's been doing it for over 20 years now. She was afraid that she'd have to close a charity. She's like, I just don't know how I'm going to support it. Out of my mouth came, well, I will get you $500,000 a year. I was like, okay, guess I'm doing that now.
Wow. Good for you.
So I don't know how yet, but God put it in me. So obviously it's going to come out one way or the other. I did say I was going to get it for, so I could technically raise it. I don't have to earn it. We'll figure something out. And a friend of mine said, if you just asked everybody for 65 cents, I think you'd have it. I was like, well, thank you. He goes, I think that's a low number. You could have probably done better.
Well, I think that is fantastic. Oh my goodness, that is awesome. All right, the first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
I'm very basic, simple. I like my Excel spreadsheet because I can find things.
Are you a freak in
Google
the sheets?
I do. I know how to do my little sheets. I've done them for decades. I know how they work, and they're easy to find things when I go back to look at them. The only other thing I use is with my people, I use Tresta because it records all the phone calls. So if I have an acquisitionist working, I see every voicemail, I see every text. So I know exactly if I want to go back and review with them and see how they're doing, I can go back. Or if a seller says, oh, they said XYZ, I can be like, well, I have it right here. Let me check. So that's a great source to have.
Definitely. And Vance, my husband, is very much a freak in the sheets. He cannot survive without his spreadsheet. So the last one here is the final S is for success. What does success mean to Carly?
I would say freedom of both kinds. So time and money. Mm-hmm. I would love to be free of recourse debt, to be clear. Non-recourse debt can go in the millions, that's fine. But any recourse debt, would like to be free of that. And once I'm done working these 16-hour days, would be lovely.
Those 4 people you just hired should help with that. Hopefully.
They are. I said, if you can each take 2 hours off of my plate a day, that makes me down to a normal 8-hour day of a normal human being. So that would be great.
A normal human being. What is that all about? So before we go,
no idea.
Let's just talk quickly about your course here. Are there live calls? Is it pre-recorded videos? What does your course entail?
So it is live in person. So we come out, classes twice a month.
Oh, wait.
And
So
we do it
it's
from
only for people in Raleigh?
No,
Oh,
but it is live in person for the people local. We are going to be streaming it for
okay.
people nationally. So they'll get a Zoom link and they'll be able to Zoom in. But for the local people, they will be here in person. I get on the phone with them. I go out to houses with them. If they're obviously national, we'll just do FaceTime and we'll go out to the house that way. But it's twice a week. They get access to me, so they get my cell phone, they get my email, they're able to contact me. A lot of these you don't ever get to the human that you're following. So we have a lot of details. It's a 6-month course. We go deep from mindset all the way to check. So whole deal is to do deals in the class. We want to be successful.
Well, I don't doubt it. I think it will be a huge success. And Carly, I thank you again for having to reschedule this and deal with the power outage last time. And it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.